You may notice that when you do start restricting or you start a new diet, you do see some results in the beginning, right? Do you ever notice what the pattern is? After you stop losing weight, what ends up happening? That's right, you go out of control. You get into what I call the last supper mindset, where you start to eat everything in sight because of fear of missing out. So if you want to stop the craving, whether that is sugar cravings after every meal, or cravings in the afternoon, or always needing a dessert, or nighttime snacking, or feeling like you're always thinking about food, if you want to stop the craving and stop the food obsession, then you have to stop restricting. That is the first step to calming the craving. Do you find that you know exactly what you're supposed to do when it comes to nutrition, but have a really hard time sticking to it? In fact, you notice that you're constantly craving things, or you can do really, really well on a meal plan, but then all of a sudden you're at a birthday party, you end up having a piece of cake, and then you go home and you completely annihilate everything in sight. And then, of course, berate yourself for having given up on your self-commitments. So if that's what you're feeling, I want to talk to you about how your nervous system is actually behind the unwanted eating. And what I've created for you is a little ebook, and it's a way for you to take a 7-step approach to abolish the cravings. And I'm going to explain to you why, even though these 7 steps are extremely simple, they are so powerful, and how important it is to start one at a time, master it, and then of course move on to the next one when you feel comfortable, when you feel like you are ready and you're so in your alignment to move on towards that place where you feel like, yeah, I'm eating the way that really resonates with me, and I feel so relaxed around food, and I'm not obsessed with food anymore, and I'm not always worried about if I eat this, what the consequences will be on my body, on my weight, and on my size. And so we're going to move away from all of that obsession around what we're supposed to look like and what we're supposed to do to look like what we want to look like, and actually talk about how all of this behavior is stemming from the nervous system. Because let's face it, you know exactly what to do. You don't need to be on here today listening to me so that I could tell you, hey, I think that you should eat more whole foods and eat less junk foods. I mean, we all knew that. And when I was struggling with binge eating years ago, when I was a CrossFit gym owner and I was super into nutrition and the health and fitness space, trying to learn everything there was about what to eat, what not to eat, about optimal health, about longevity, and of course, following all the diet trends that were super backed up by science, I found myself completely confused. And what I ended up doing is I triggered a part of my nervous system that is responsible for feast. Now, we are able to withstand famine. We're able to go through periods of time where we can actually withstand being able to survive without food. And our nervous system kicks in to help us ensure the survival by slowing down metabolism, by upping our cravings, by making sure that we can conserve as much energy as possible so that we don't perish. And then the moment that we do finally get access to food, we then turn on this mechanism, which I call the binge mechanism in the brain, that absolutely just feels out of control hungry. Like you can't satisfy your needs and your urges. And this is primal survival. This is there to ensure that we can continue the species over time. Now, again, I'm going to move away from all that geeking out part, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the nervous system and that first step to making sure that you calm the cravings. And what's really cool about this workbook is I've put a place for you to do some self-reflection, and I've added some power habits as well to really get you to follow what I call the rule of addition first before subtraction when it comes to changing your habits. All right, now let's dive into it. So your first thing that I want you just to think about, okay, as we have this conversation, your first thing is to think about this word binge eating, okay? That's a supercharged word. I know you're probably like, Sherry, I'm just going to keep scrolling because I'm not a binge eater. And I totally get it, because when we learned about binge eating back in the day, we learned about it being associated with binging and purging. In fact, the way that it was taught to us was you're going to eat a large quantity of food up until the point where you can't eat anymore, and then you're going to purge in some way, either through vomiting or even over exercising. But binge eating I want to change this definition for you because if you can do that, you're actually going to open up a lot of space for healing. Binge eating is you actually knowing exactly what you're supposed to do, but you can't get yourself to do it. In fact, it's almost like there's this switch that turns off where you feel out of control, where you're no longer in the driver's seat of your behavior and of your habits. And then you're finding yourself doing all the things that are sabotaging your efforts. It could look like mindless snacking all day long. It could look like while you're cooking, you're snacking and practically ate an entire meal by the time dinner was ready. It could also look like always craving a little sweet or dessert. And whether you sit down in one setting and eat an entire cake or walk into the kitchen back and forth and grab a piece every single time you walk by that cake, that outcome is still the same. You're feeling out of control around food. It could also be nighttime snacking, that you eat super clean throughout the day. You've meal prepped, you're eating salads for lunch, you're having a nice omelet for breakfast, you're having some protein and maybe some veggies for dinner. And then by 7 or 8 p.m., you're in front of the TV eating all the things that, well, are getting on that mind for satisfaction, for fulfilling this need to feel comforted, to feel maybe a little bit more relaxed in front of the TV, almost like you rewarded yourself for something. So anytime you have those feelings, anytime you're noticing that your behavior is getting in the way from you committing to the things that you already know what to do, this is a nervous system issue. Now, I'm going to be talking way more about it throughout this entire week as I share with you step by step how to calm the cravings by regulating your nervous system so you feel more relaxed around food, so you make peace with food, so that you feel that you are thinking about food a lot less and thinking about your body and worried about your weight or weight gain a lot less. Inside this workbook, I talk to you a little bit about the nervous system as well. So it's an opportunity for you to just read it, and read it again, and come in and listen to these conversations. And I talk a lot about this too on the Make Peace with Food podcast, where I talk about the nervous system and I talk about strategies to overcome unwanted eating. And by the way, when you understand that your nervous system is responsible for weight gain or weight loss, your whole approach to fitness, to health, to nutrition is completely different. You're now really tuned into how your body is feeling. And guess what the thermometer is? The thermometer is your emotions. Your emotions and your thoughts are going to tell you exactly which nervous system state you're in. This is a completely different approach. And so many people who were on my rapid release masterclass were asking me, why is this the first time I've ever heard about this? Well, the first time you ever hear about it is going to be through these conversations, because this has come from 25 years of experience in this space, from being a personal trainer and having a personal training company and going into athletic therapy and osteopathy and then opening CrossFit gyms, and then also struggling through it myself and realizing that there's no meal plan that can ever help you overcome that, because it's not about the meal plan. It's about understanding that we always know what to do. You don't need anyone to tell you what to do. In fact, you can go to the great wide Google and find all the information that you need and what meal plan to follow and what workout program to follow. But that's not what's stopping you, is it? That's right. You know it's something deeper. You know that you always know what to do, but you find yourself self-sabotaging somehow. And then, of course, beating yourself up over it, and boom, the cycle continues. So your first step to calming the craving is to stop restricting. And this one is really simple, isn't it? Stop restricting. What do you mean? I'm going to stop restricting, but if I stop restricting, I'm going to eat everything in the fridge and the pantry, Sherry. So how can I stop restricting? In fact, my restricting is what's been keeping me in control this whole time. No, it actually hasn't. Because notice how much of your thoughts are spent on food. Notice how much of your thoughts are spent on what to eat, what not to eat, maybe even fear of eating certain things, or thoughts of regret, or maybe punishing yourself or feeling guilty or shameful for eating those things that you said you weren't going to eat. The moment you stop restricting, there may be a little bit of adjustment at first, especially if you've been dieting for years, if not decades. But here's the thing. I'm talking to you about the nervous system. And on a very simple and basic nervous system level, anytime that you restrict food, whether that is you being in a caloric deficit for too long, so that means you're counting calories and your cool little app told you that if you restrict your calories and you go into a deficit for a few months, then you should hit your target weight loss goal, right? So if you've been doing that for too long, which is, by the way, more than 72 hours, so more than 3 days, you're going to trigger your nervous system into what I call protection mode. Now, you may have heard protection mode as being referred to as fight or flight or sympathetic nervous state. I call it protection mode because I like to talk to you about what happens in terms of your thoughts, in terms of your emotions, and in terms of your behavior and your hormones and your gut health. There is so much more that happens than just your heart rate increasing and you're getting ready to fight or to flee or to hide. And if you can understand on those different systems and on those levels what happens and put it all together, you're also going to understand why your body will be prone to storing fat. Now, let's come back to what happens when you restrict on a nervous system level. Anytime that you restrict your food, whether that is going into caloric deficit, as I just shared, or you're removing an entire food group, maybe now you're carnivore, maybe now you are plant-based to lose weight, maybe now you are doing certain counting of macros to lose weight, maybe now you're keto to lose weight. Whatever you do in an effort to lose weight, including juicing, including fasting, if the ultimate goal is to lose weight and there's an emotion of fear, of shame, of guilt, of doubt, of uncertainty, of worry, if you have any of those feelings because you can't stand how much you weigh, you're freaking out about your upcoming reunion, it's your daughter's wedding and you need to fit into the dress, if any of those thoughts are creating those emotions while your focus is to lose weight and you're about to go into a restriction, your body's going to sense it as a food scarcity, And a food scarcity is actually traumatic for the body. Now, there's two kinds of food scarcities that I teach in the Make Peace with Food program. You have what I call an actual food scarcity, or you have an imposed food scarcity. Now, your actual or real food scarcity is you actually growing up in an environment where there was no food, where you had to go to bed hungry because it simply wasn't there. And that's actually very traumatic for the body. That is actually your body going into famine for such a long time. And remember, the moment that you kick in that famine, which if you want to kick in that famine, you just have to deprive yourself of food for 3 days, 72 hours, with the emotion of fear, with the emotion of doubt and worry and uncertainty. So that is the formula. The formula is a deficit in intake of food and nutrition and the emotions of worry and fear and scarcity, because that is an alarm for your body. That is an alarm that something is going wrong. Something is bad. I need to watch out for something. There's danger. There's potential danger. And anytime you have thoughts of potential danger, your nervous system is going to kick into protection mode. Why? To protect you. Because it actually loves you. That's why it does that. And so if you go into a restriction, if you continue to restrict, you're telling your brain all the time, there's a problem. We don't have food. And of course, now, if you are looking at yourself in the mirror, you're doing a lot of that negative self-talk, you have very negative body image, you're always putting yourself down, you're calling yourself the F word, which if you follow my podcast, if you follow the conversations, if you've been on Rapid Release, you know that the F word that I'm talking about is the FAT word, not fuck. You can say fuck if you want, but do not use that FAT word because it's so incredibly triggering and you literally command your body to that state. And you basically tell your body that this is my end state and I can't do anything about it. So if you go into a food scarcity, if you continue to restrict, you will constantly be in protection mode. And you may notice that when you do start restricting or you start a new diet, you do see some results in the beginning, right? That's why you do it, because your mind says, oh my God, every single time I go on a diet, I see results. Something happens. There is weight loss. And so you teach yourself that restriction is going to give you weight loss. You have this hope that if you continue to repeat this over and over again, you're eventually going to end up getting success. But what happens then? Do you ever notice what the pattern is? After you stop losing weight, or maybe after the first few weeks or the first few months, or you finally have some sugar, or you have a piece of cake, or you have some food, you have some carbs, or you have some fats, or you have something that wasn't on that meal plan, what ends up happening? That's right. You go out of control. You get into what I call the last supper mindset, where you start to eat everything in sight because of fear of missing out, because you have fear that you may never get this opportunity again. And that is a telltale sign. That is like a red flag that you are in protection mode. So if you want to stop the craving, whether that is sugar cravings after every meal, or cravings in the afternoon, or always needing a dessert, or nighttime snacking, or feeling like you're always thinking about food, if you want to stop the craving and stop the food obsession, then you have to stop restricting. That is the first step to calming the cravings. I'm going to be back and I'm going to be talking to you about step number 2. And like I said, there are 7 steps that I will be walking you through. They are super, super simple, but my goal is to teach you why they're important on a nervous system level, what's actually happening with the nervous system and why these are really important. You know, I share this workbook with so many people and they may skim through it and be like, oh, this is too simple for it to actually work. But I'm telling you, if you understand why you have to do it and you understand that the nervous system not only is responsible for getting you out of a emergency situation and also ensuring your survival, but it's very much dependent on your thoughts and your emotions. Your diet is no longer what you're eating. Your diet now becomes what you're thinking, how you're feeling, the people around you, your environment that are triggering those thoughts, those emotions, and ultimately those behaviors. So I will see you soon and let me know in the comments, did this resonate with you? What are your thoughts? Do you notice that when you have this dieting pattern, that some of the things that I've been sharing with you today are things that you notice too? I'll see you soon.